Hey, I've got a Valken Proton here. I just wanted to do a review of this gun because I've been using it for about 4 months now, and I really like it a lot. And I think it's a really good value. And when I go on to PB Nation, I don't see many people using that gun, so I feel like not many people know about it or know how good it is. It's priced at around 300 to 350 if you get one new, and so that means that it's competing with the Planet Eclipse ETHA, it's competing with the Ecstasy by GOG, and I guess it's competing with the Axe, although the Axe is a little bit more money. I actually have a Mini here that I'm going to compare it to because I think that it's in the similar bracket to the Mini. But it's definitely not like an entry-level gun by any means, and I think that it's actually a pretty good gun for the amount of money that you're getting. You can find these on PB Nation or on eBay for like between 200 and 250 used, and I'm going to go over some of the features of the gun that I like that I think make it a great marker for the price, and pretty much for anyone that's interested in upgrading from like a starter marker. Obviously this gun won't really compete with upper class or like higher end spool valve guns, but there's some things about it that are pretty nice. Okay, so just for size comparison, I've got a Ninja 6845 on the back, so it's pretty small. This is the stock barrel that it comes with. I don't know what the bore is on it, but most new barrels nowadays tend to be like 688 or 685. It's not printed on there. It's a pretty cheap barrel, but a barrel's a barrel. If you're going to upgrade it, you could probably get a 14-inch barrel, and that'll help you a little bit. But of course, upgrading your paintballs is more important than upgrading your barrel in terms of accuracy. But you could always get a barrel kit. It's a pretty good barrel. I upgraded to a Deadly Winds carbon fiber 14-inch barrel. If you're going to splurge for the barrel kits with the inserts or with the different size backs, I think that the carbon fiber barrels are the way to go because it's just so light. This is a 14-inch barrel, and it's, I don't know, significantly lighter than this 11 or 12-inch barrel that it comes with stock. So it is a light gun, and you can see how small it is compared to the tank. The tank is almost bigger than the gun is. Certainly heavier. I'm going to take the tank off so that you can see the whole gun in the frame. I'm just basically going to start from the back. So on my screen everything's backwards, so I'm going to try my best to work with it. Starting from the back, it does have a on-off ASA, which is pretty nice. I think it's a great ASA. It's really easy to turn. I've had a chance to try out ASAs on a couple different guns, as well as like, you know, custom products, aftermarket ASAs, and I mean, this one's really nice. So really, an ASA is an ASA. You can't really complain. I've heard some people on the forums, and by some people I mean like maybe one or two people, reporting that they have leaks from this, but I've never experienced a leak, so I'm not sure if it's just a one-off problem or maybe it's not tightened down enough. Okay, moving up to the grips. Really nice grips. Really skinny. I don't have very big hands, and I can like completely wrap my hand around this grip. So the grip is just tiny. It's so skinny, which I guess could be a problem if you have like monster hands. I don't know. I like it though. The only thing, you know, it doesn't have wraparound grips, so the rubber doesn't wrap around all the way, which I guess if you're like one-handing it, you might have some issues with slipping. But I don't know. I play with gloves, and I've never really had any issues with slipping. Certainly it's not as nice as like the Ego or the Geo grips, or like the DM14. The newer DMs have like rubber everywhere, so it's like, you know, really good for gripping. This has, you know, of course, metal on the back. The front grip is all metal, so there is a chance, I guess, that you would slip and slide, especially when your hands are covered with paint. But you could always put on you know, you could always put on a aftermarket rubber cover or wrap it with tape or whatever you want to do to increase the grips, make them a little bit more grippy. I do like the fact that there's really nothing to snag your hand though. So if you look at the back of this, the taper, or this, I guess the technical term would be chamfer, from the back all the way into the grip body is very smooth. So there's really nothing to snag your hands, which means you can like switch hands very easily, which I like. Okay, moving on to the trigger. The trigger is weird actually. The trigger is really nice. First of all, like it's a really high quality trigger. There's no side to side motion at all. The trigger feels like rock solid, and it's so smooth. It uses bearings, and it's a micro switch trigger, so you can definitely hear the sound of the click when you pull it in. Anyway, it is a very smooth trigger. The only thing that's weird about it though is I can't walk it in semi, and I've heard some people say the same thing online. It's very strange. You can't really walk it for some reason. You can get like 5 balls per second, and that's it. For some reason, you just get stuck. It ramps up fine into PSP, but it just, for some reason in semi, it's very hard to get fast streams. And I've heard some people say that it might be because the spring is too strong. It definitely feels a little stronger than the spring inside of Planet Eclipse guns, which are the probably the guns that I'm most familiar with besides this one. The spring definitely feels stiff in comparison, so that might have something to do with it. You might be able to go in and take out the spring and snip off part of the spring and replace it, and then it would be a little bit smoother. Moving up to the body, I guess like the milling overall, it's very nice. There's not necessarily sharp edges in that they would cut you or they would snag your hands, but some of the more decorative milling on here, it seems like it wasn't exactly finished all the way. Like the edges are pretty sharp, but it's not a functional problem, and I actually kind of like the way it looks. I think aesthetically this is a beautiful gun. It's so small, it's so lightweight, and I really like the design on it. I think some of the designs on some guns, like I'll use the DMs again as an example, are just a little bit too much. Like there's just too much going on. So from a look standpoint, of course it's all subjective. Everyone has different tastes, but I like the way that the Proton looks. I think it's a pretty great gun. I'll take out the bolt for you. The bolt has an Allen key, but it does have like these little indents for your fingers. So you can, if you tighten it by hand, you can unscrew it by hand. If you tighten it with a tool, you're going to have to use a tool to unscrew it. It doesn't come off as quickly or as easily as a Lux or the new DM14. It's not toolless, but you can make it like a ghetto toolless basically by just tightening it by hand and then pulling it out this way, which is nice. You can see that the drivetrain is tiny. I don't have anything to compare it to right now. For the longest time I had a MacDev Droid on my table here, and I could have just showed you that, but it's not there anymore. But it's tiny. You can imagine it's about actually 75% the size of a comparable spool valve from a Geo or from a DM. Tiny, tiny, tiny. And the bolt face is actually made of plastic, not metal. I don't know how that affects the operation of it. I haven't shredded any O-rings on it yet. I do have some extra O-rings that came with it. I haven't had to change any O-rings. I've only shot probably about maybe 9 cases through it so far, so maybe I haven't reached the point yet where I'd have to worry about O-rings. But all in all, it's a pretty consistent marker. Consistency, of course, has more to do with the regulator. Okay, the regulator in this gun is built into the grip, which brings me to my next point, which is the fact that it's a macroless marker. Okay, so there's no hose here. Everything's through the grip, which is nice. And I guess the regulator you access right here. And I've got pretty consistent velocities with this gun. Usually like plus or minus 10, which is about average. That's what you should expect. In terms of the board, it's all up here in the front grip. So to turn the marker on, you just press this button that's right in the trigger frame. So you push that in, the gun turns on. The bottom light is for your firing modes, which is pretty easy. You can switch through them by just pressing this button, and it does everything. And then if you want to if you want to adjust any of the firing modes, you can do it through these two buttons too. So it's obviously not as easy as an OLED board, but still, for what it is, 2 buttons and 3 blinking lights, you can do a lot with it, which is nice. And of course, it's very good on battery life. I've yet to change the batteries on it. The clamping feed neck is really nice. This little lever on many guns is loose, which really bothers me. Maybe there's really no problem with that, but there's nothing, in my opinion, really as bothersome as like this little lever that's just hanging loose. On here it's very solid, and you've got an Allen key on the other side that you can adjust. I guess the drawback of it being so tight is that you can't really twist it like you can with some of the other ones. You can actually twist the lever. On this one it's just back and forth, but I haven't had any problems with my hoppers fitting on there. Eye covers, eyes are good, they function well, I haven't had any problem, very easy to clean. Detents, very easy to clean and maintain as well. And just as with any spool valve marker, you probably should be taking out the bowl, cleaning everything after every day of play with it. It really only takes like 5 minutes, and I haven't had any issues with this gun at all. To access the battery, you just take out these screws, battery, 9 volt is underneath the grips, and that's pretty much it for this gun. So with a carbon fiber barrel, right, and with a carbon fiber tank, this marker is really, really light. It's like, you can almost spin the marker onto the tank if you wanted to. That's how light it is. But I'm going to compare it real quick. Before the video ends, I'm going to compare this to the Mini, which I have right next to me right now. The Mini, which I always thought was like one of the smallest guns out there, and certainly it's more compact in this sense. It's more compact, like your hands are closer together. But compare this in size to this. I mean, this is huge in comparison, and it feels big, and it feels heavy, and it certainly is heavier. It doesn't have an on-off ASA. You can buy one, of course, aftermarket, but stock, it doesn't have an on-off ASA. You can't switch the firing modes, right? You'd have to open up the board to switch the firing modes unless you get the aftermarket parts. It's got these, what are these, the eye covers? No, these are the detent covers. It's got these detent covers that just stick out of the sides, and I mean, I like the Mini personally. I think it's a great gun, but it's a little old at this point. It's an older design when it came out in like 2006 or something. The Proton is definitely the next step up. It's got everything that the Mini doesn't have, stock, and you can find them on eBay for just as cheap. Stick a carbon fiber barrel in the front, 14-inch, and a good hopper, and you're basically set to play in the woods, speedball. I think this is a really versatile marker for the price. I would definitely recommend it. So if you get the chance to check one out, either in the store or maybe a friend has one, do it. Otherwise, take a chance on it. $200 bucks. I mean, you can buy a lot of things for $200 bucks that don't give you nearly as much value as this. So those are my thoughts. Take care, guys. See you.